Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditation practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. I'm still absorbed here in my act as I record the introduction after the live exercise. These mindful drawing practices are in part hosted or sponsored by Mindful Pratt, an organization within Pratt Institute Art School in Brooklyn, New York, that looks at using creativity as an entrance in to mindfulness, whether that's through drawing, like these exercises, through breath work, through crafting and making. There's a few of them that go on, and if you're part of the Pratt community, you might be interested to find some of that on the Mindful Pratt website. I can link it down in the description to check it out. But otherwise, for this mindful practice, the mindful drawing exercises, I hold the exercises live via Zoom every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., and then record them, edit them, put them together so they can be shared out here on YouTube, usually every Wednesday morning, probably a week or so behind. The schedule varies on when I have the time to edit them and put them together. Put a little music for relaxation in there. But if you're an alum or part of the Pratt community, you might join live on Tuesday mornings and experience the full exercise. If not, join, subscribe here, like the video, and come back to catch it each week. We practice new things every time. Spend a few moments sketching, thinking, reflecting, journaling in the morning. Something you can take from these practices and do anytime for yourself. Coming up with something simple, something easy to engage with, an act of making shapes, a slight desire for representation, perhaps a thing that kind of looks like something, a technique, a little bit of perspective or oblique, a little shading, construction comes in now and then. Each week is something new, something different. Each week can contribute to building your skills with drawing, your connection between the mind and the hand, that flowing or expression of imagination to the page, built up through small little practices, about 20 to 30 minutes with a warm-up, a longer exercise, and some quiet drawing time in there. And over time, you might find your own interface to drawing. There are plenty of other places to build more techniques and let them influence your own practice here. But this one is accessible to everyone. No special tools or skills needed. Usually I use just a simple felt tip pen like this here. Whenever a pilot, razor point. Sometimes I pull out some colored pencils or any other just graphite pencil, even occasionally a little marker or some charcoal or something. But each exercise suitable for any medium, and whatever you'd like to bring if you come each week and watch the episodes is totally open. Nothing is specific to the piece. You can follow along and see what I do on screen, help get a start to the guide, but at any moment you feel comfortable, you feel engaged and relaxed, you feel something flowing from you through that presence on the paper, just let the drawing become what it becomes. No one sees it, there's no grade, and you can really let yourself just play in that space you make with a little bit of breath work, a little bit of mindful noticing and attention to yourself, your surroundings, and the tools and mediums that help you engage with a creative act like drawing, and a little imagination. So this week we'll take some inspiration from a little outdoors time, chopping some wood, starting a fire, just enjoying some of those simpler things, and here taking that rack of split wood and standing it up, moving it around, layering it out on the paper. But it'll be simple. I'll just start from a few bumpy, wobbly rectangles, give them a little shape or volume, and then bring in a little detail of texture of that rough, coarse material, and see what kind of landscape of standing wood we can make on the page. I'm going to use pen for most of the exercise. Doing a little colored pencil now afterwards just to have a little fun and keep going. But bring whatever you want. Gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. Kind of thinking of that shape of a split log and then beginning to stack a bunch of them up, whichever way you see fit, but I'm going to make them like little totems in space, kind of a field of vertical standing rectangular objects with just a little thickness. And so a quick warm-up introduction. We'll start with a roughly rectangular, slightly taller than wide shape with rough edges. So something there. We'll play a little bit with how rough those edges might be, or you can have a lot of play and really jagged and rough sides, tops, bottom, there like that. You have something more smoothly bumpy or wiggly, a little more curvy to it, or something a little less bumpy, just an occasional jog or split that happens, and maybe throughout the exercise, all of those different things come into play. And we'll start there. We'll pick a direction, left or right, and give them perhaps just an indication of thickness inside that again can follow and play with the bumps. Or really just drawing along an edge a little bit back into space. That can be more layered and round, or simple, just a little totem or rectangular prism to it. And I think we'll start stacking them by layering new ones, first starting from that rectangle, giving just a little side suggestion, maybe a little top suggestion, and let them stack back into space, forming a little field of these standing objects. And then look at adding some detail or other things if we have time. So the kind of repeated form, each a chance to explore how we're moving that pen or pencil to have a looseness to the edge, how we're tracking around the edge to form a looseness to a volume, and then the collection and field of them as they grow outwards. We'll oscillate back and forth maybe between drawing the shapes and giving edge or detail to them, so feel free at any time to move between those modes. To get us going, just a couple of breaths to slow into the pace and place of things. Let the hands rest a little bit. Kind of feel the weight of the arms through the hands if they can sit on a table or on the sketchbook. Remember and notice that it's all there, supported by your core and your trunk. Finding a nice, relaxed place for that chain. And take a nice full breath when you're ready. As you let it out, bring yourself to the page. Find a place to begin and make that first bumpy rectangle. And start the pen or pencil moving. Either will work well here. Any size. Just a rectangular form. Not perfect. Like a piece of wood split off of a bigger log. Seen just in profile. Some of those notches maybe offer an opportunity to extend a couple of lines inwards, just to give it a little bit of definition. And then on one side or the other will be the side we stick with throughout the exercise, left or right. Give a little bit of a angle back, and then track along the edge. Sometimes it can hide and dive into the edge, reach out around. You're going to complete that light volume to the front view. You can start stacking and layering right away. I think I'll begin just sneaking a new rectangle behind. Maybe we can also move to completely free areas of the paper at any time to have new stacks begin. And each time we'll get the rhythm down of that rectangle, a little bit of thickening to two of the edges for me, left and top. Can be anything. If you repeat the same ones, you'll get a bit of consistency to the composition on the page. If you change it around every time, things might just look a little weird. But they might find their own interesting figures that way. So feel free to explore or just follow one direction. Keep that as part of the mind presence. Left, top, front, left, top, front. And with a view started, we got a good sense of where we are on the page, how things can begin gathering and working visually into that space. Can now let our hand follow the pattern as we let our breath guide us deeper into our space and action of drawing. Noticing where we are in our cycles of breath. Noticing when we begin or end something on the page. Things will have variability. So first we're just noticing the breath from time to time. Might move in and out of our presence, depending on what decisions we're making on the paper. And as you have a little bit of that time with the breath, with the breathing, starting to guide it into what feels natural for you, whether that's an inhalation between full moments, strong regrounding there before drawing a new shape, and then letting the natural breath take over for a while you complete whatever the current figure or form is. For me, it feels natural to draw one good breath before the first placement of a rectangle, and draw one deep breath before starting to add detail or edge. Before every major action takes place, there's a little resetting with an inhalation and engaging into a steady flow with the exhalation. And it's not an exercise in control of the breath or the hand. We let the hand have its way of wobbling, so we don't have to worry too much about precision, just loosely following a pattern, and let the breath and its guidance have its way of wobbling. But noticing that breath in can stabilize, that breath out can guide the movement. And everything in between is what the body needs to fill in. Keep the oxygen flowing, keep the brain engaged. A little looser attention to the space. Maybe a little harder exercise with less structure at first. As we pay attention and find structure from our presence in action. In that space and moments of breathing, we listen a little deeper. Perhaps we hear a little more around us. Hear the breath move over the inside and outside connection through our nostrils or mouth. Hear the heavy, strong parts as the lungs are full or empty, starting their first reinflation or exhalation. We hear some cars outside or birds, the wind. Maybe just the light scratch or movement of that pen or pencil onto the page. Then can we unhear some of those sounds? Perhaps sink a little deeper in just our generated sound of the breath. Hear your next inhalation in the foreground. Listen to your next exhalation at the front of your attention. And as you draw and they align together, the sound, a guide for the hand, the intent or action, a guide for the sound. Hearing how your body makes space around it, compressing the air, the medium for the sound to move through, compressing the air into the pressure chambers of the lung. Making the space between those compressions draw out into the space, a lightness, a release of the molecules, a release of the breath. All sound slowly becomes absorbed in that cycle of inhalation and exhalation. We can spend a few minutes in that space of our own sounds, continuing to draw new stacks, totems, cascading back, layering, stacking, continuing to add little details to our wobbles, and darkness to some edges, finding places for that pen to engage in that quiet space of our own wind sound, and draw for a little while. And as you've been in that more quiet internal space, reflect on what you noticed. Perhaps the sound of the instrument and the page becomes more prominent. Really hearing the interaction between pencil or pen, the texture of the paper. Drawing us further inward to the presence of the drawing. Perhaps the breath is all encompassing, strong, heavy, rhythmic. We'll all begin to notice different things. And that's part of what we're doing, is noticing all the stuff that's there all the time around us. Some of it could be important, some of it may not be. At first, we just notice, let it come in to the attention, let the attention witness it for a little while until it inevitably gets drawn to something else. And with the things that strike our mind or our imagination or interest, guiding the attention back a little bit, starting to recognize the things that bring us into the space, that help let the wandering thoughts subside, that keep presence with the moment, and finding those little things for yourself can always be helpful. You need a break for a moment. You take some time, maybe a couple of minutes just on a napkin, a pad of paper, to take the exercises you practice and let them guide you at any time. Hear breath, hear the pen, feel the vibrations and sensation in the fingertips. Wherever that attention draws most becomes your anchor, and at times it will drift, but we can always bring it back because we know it's there. Is our more prominent place of presence and attention with this act of drawing or any act of mindfulness. That is with any task or attention, you only can keep it for so long before either fatigue or distraction will creep in. And that's the importance of a practice, to be able to notice and then act within that space of change. Do I realign, reestablish for a few deliberate, encompassing breaths, a few clear, mind-centering strokes? Or is it time to take a little break, a couple of minutes, recharge, or move and take with me from that presence the clarity and stillness that can expand out and be a part of other things throughout the day? So as you draw and as you listen to the self and to the space around you, finding that time to wind down, to bring the pen or pencil to a rest on your rhythm, no rush. As you finish up a few marks, noticing its ending as much as its presence during the exercise, noticing the change to another mode, giving yourself a few recentering breaths, a few slow, nice shoulder rolls back, a couple of times, forward a couple of times if your pencil is down and ready. Maybe a little turn side to side, letting all of that time in the mind-hand connection trickle out and fill all the spaces of the body. A little rock at the hips, a little move side to side, a big inhalation, and a nice closing exhalation to your exercise. But we have the start of a little something there on the page. Some stacked rectangular forms, a little bit like bits of log split and being prepared in some spatial totem-esque landscape. Or maybe you have something different that came to mind as you work from that rectangular volume, a little skew or oblique to the side, and the layering, stacking effect throughout the page. Maybe your mind in the breath takes you somewhere else. But what strikes me is these call for maybe a little bit of color, so I think I'll draw some more, add a little definition to them as we reflect on that space of drawing. Any act we start to take opens us to its potential, its creative possibilities. And while the initial outcome, especially in a mindful drawing exercise like this, where you're just paying attention to your presence, to the page, to the movement of the hand and the breath, to the connection with the eye and the instrument, the feel and engagement of the medium there. We're not so concerned with the quality or look or representation of the outcome. For each person, each individual engaging in the exercise, that can become more or less of a concern as you move along. But if it's ever something that overrides your presence to feel, to notice, to express, and to relax into the exercise, there's a frustration or discomfort that comes from trying to make something look a certain way, it's best to close the eyes, take a deep breath or two, let it go a little bit, let that pen or pencil move on its own, let it color a little bit outside the lines, maybe even change mediums of expression. If you're working with a pen and its precision and immutability of the ink cause some tension. Oh, that line can never be moved again, there forever. Grab a pencil or a colored pencil like these. They can smudge and hide and cover, change our perception, soften the rough edges there. Get rid of that line that we're staying inside of for a little while. You also move in a different way and offer a little bit more glide and silkiness, a little bit wider angle of engagement to the paper. A place to relax a little while, or if you've been in that pencil place, everything a little wobbly, a little too soft for your liking, maybe grab a pen, see how you can build off those soft edges, bring them into a space of clean sharpness in the pen, find a balance between that shifting of mediums or techniques of drawing that come with those different mediums. A great way to jumpstart the system into another mode of thinking. And when done with mindful intention and presence, notice something is not working the way I want for the exercise now. The tension and I want to relax, the precision and I want softness, the softness and I want edge. These creative, aesthetic positions that we get into when making anything, because our mind and our eye see, our imagination projects. We have little judgments, little desires that come with things. Those desires are natural, they're normal, but we might want to give them a little challenge during an exercise such as this. Do I need those desires? Is that tension necessary here? Can I let it fall back into the breath, into the action, soften my will, soften my expectations, give myself a little space. Maybe at some point in the work of art or creativity, there is need for that critical eye, that guiding hand that must look some way, that desire or expression. But it can become a limit. We want to give time to a little bit of both. And with these exercises, as you've spent some time there, maybe gotten something a little started on the page, then taking a step away, taking a change in medium, can be a great way to extend the found, the possibles from that initial creative act, maybe loosely defined, into something now seen. As I'm doing here, bringing a little texture, tone, or color into the artifacts, letting them change figuration on the page through that reading of the eye. Or maybe just drawing again anew, adding more, filling out, going from seeing things to abstract things, whatever it may be. Drawing is alive. It's a living, growing process. We build into it in layers, time, layers of imagination, layers of techniques and mediums, until at some point we bring it all to rest, and there is just what is left on the page, left for us to think about, to see, left for us to perhaps share, take away from, or just fold away, turn over, and start again on the back. The exercise, moving on and on forever. A nice fall outdoors activity to take us into the beginning of that longer winter holiday season. I hope with this exercise everyone can enjoy a little time of Thanksgiving and have a little fun out there in the outdoors while we experience the presence of the changing seasons in some parts of the world, or just share our time with friends and family and bring thankfulness into our practice. Thank you. Have a good week and draw well.